Welcome to the Big Show Newscast, your source for breaking news from the show floor and daily coverage featuring new products, events, interviews, and equipment spotlights. Brought to you by ForConstructionPros.com, the #1 website for construction professionals. Sponsored by Caterpillar. The next generation starts here.
Good morning. It's day 2 of ConExpo ConAg 2011 here in Las Vegas. Welcome to the Big Show Newscast presented by Caterpillar, where the next generation starts here, and for ConstructionPros.com. Each morning of the convention, we'll offer you highlights and information designed to help you navigate the expansive exhibits and seminars. Today, we're looking into America's infrastructure and the outlook for the coming years.
The primary challenge for the authorization of a long-term highway bill has been and will continue to be funding. The primary obstacle at this point is that we are spending more money out of the Highway Trust Fund than receipts are coming in. So in order to address that, we have to close a significant gap, and that is the primary challenge moving forward.
With the growing funding gap, John Horsley, Executive Director of the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, and Pete Ruane, President and CEO of the American Road and Transportation Builders Association, expressed a need for creative financing to support a new highway bill, since there is no support in Congress for raising the federal gas tax.
The bill that is passed in 2011, well, we expect to see there to stretch existing dollars. We don't think there'll be new revenues, but to stretch existing dollars, we think the Congress will open the door wider to tolling the interstate and the use of public-private ventures where you bring private, sometimes foreign capital, sometimes American capital, equity investment to transportation that has to be repaid through tolls.
There's also other user fee proposals out there that we've been pushing, ARTBA that is, a freight-related user fee to build capacity to add new corridors, especially for truck-only lanes. That is still in discussion. That's a possibility. I think the Congress is going to look very seriously at the whole idea of an infrastructure bank, and bonding proposals that have been talked about for some time now are still on the table. And while the Congress knows that it has to do something this year in the coming months, it's going to be very tough, but we're not ruling out any type of measure, although the one that's probably the least likely is more use of the general fund to support these programs.
While Horsley and Ruane believe Chairman Mica will continue to push for passage of a reauthorization of a new multi-year surface transportation bill, both are convinced it will be a more conservative version of former committee chairman Oberstar's $450 billion proposal. Yet Horsley and Ruane expressed a need for public and private partnership to support funding efforts.
Mr. Oberstar wanted a bill that would be funded somewhere in the range of $450 billion to $500 billion. Mr. Mica is taking the approach to live within the revenues that are flowing into the trust fund today, so that would be perhaps a program of $250 billion. So he wants to take a much more conservative stance in terms of the level of funding.
You're going to see much greater push for public-private partnerships as a means to both finance the program and use that as a procurement method. I do believe you'll see a lot stronger support for the PPP approach from Chairman Mica.
As a timeline, Horsley expects the House to pass a bill by Memorial Day, followed by passage of the Senate's version this summer, and final authorization by President Obama this fall.
We do not know whether the likely outcome here in the short term will be short-term extensions followed by a long-term bill, or a long-term extension to beyond the next presidential election, in order then to address some of the major challenges facing the passage of a highway bill, so that a highway authorization could be passed at that point.
The good news is Congressman Michael wants to speed things up. He knows it takes too long to build what the country needs built. And so he wants to help us speed up the federal process.
But I do think we will see that this year. We'll see one getting passed, and it will contain, probably not the level of funding that Chairman Oberstar was talking about, the 450 range. Much less than that, I think, is what we're going to see.
Well, we've heard the same thing that you've heard from Chairman Mica. We've met with Senator Boxer, who chairs the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee. Both of them are talking spring, Memorial Day, that time frame. So if they hold true to what they're forecasting, we should see a bill emerge from the House by, say, May, from the Senate by midsummer, and hopefully signed into law by the President by the fall.
We had an opportunity recently to interview U.S. Department of Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood. Mr. Secretary, we're looking at some conundrums ahead of us as far as our infrastructure, our planning, our funding. What do you foresee for a transportation bill coming out of Congress this year?
Well, the President has laid out a big, bold, broad vision for a 6-year bill at about $550 billion, which really enables the country to address lots of different transportation issues, lots of different road and bridge issues, lots of different transit issues.
Right.
It also helps the President carry out his big vision to connect 80% of America with high-speed rail, which we don't have today.
Right.
So it's a good vision, and we're going to work with Congress to get them to hopefully pass a bill this year, to get a bill to the President's desk by the August recess, by August 1st, and then send a message to contractors and road builders and other people in the transportation world that there is a big plan. It's a bold plan, and it's a plan that's paid for, and it takes care of America's infrastructure needs.
Mr. Secretary, Congressman John Mica has recently become chairman of the House Transportation Committee and is working on a new highway transportation bill. What do you foresee coming out of that might be different from his predecessor, John Oberstar?
I think the one thing that the chairman and this administration and the chairman and Ray LaHood agree on is we need a big vision. We need a bold vision. We need a transportation bill this year that sends a message that we're going to meet our infrastructure needs. And I think he's committed to getting a bill to the President's desk this year. And we're going to work with him on that. And I think as he travels the country, he's going to hear the same thing that we heard when we've traveled the country. People want good roads, they want good bridges, they want good transit, they want to get into the high-speed rail business, they want different alternatives than just automobiles.
Right.
And I think when he hears that, he'll come back with a bill, and we'll work with him on that.
Mr. Secretary, the President has come out with a $550 billion 6-year spending program for highways and bridges, and a lot of it has to do, of course, with high-speed rail. Do you see that that's a real doable thing and something that the Congress will approve?
One of the things the President's budget suggests is an infrastructure fund. Some people call it an infrastructure bank. You create a big pot of money,
right,
and you fund big things. You could fund a big bridge project. You could fund a completion of the interstate somewhere in the country. You could do some bold initiatives in communities around a streetcar project, which many communities are getting into. The President's idea is that we're going to have the Highway Trust Fund, and it's been utilized very well to build our interstate system. But we know the Highway Trust Fund is diminished by people driving less and not maybe using as fuel efficient cars or using more fuel efficient cars.
Absolutely.
So the President has said we'll have the Highway Trust Fund, but let's create an infrastructure fund that can do big, bold things. And that's his initiative to say to Congress and to the country, here's another way to fund these big things that we want to do.
Would this infrastructure fund basically replace the Highway Trust
Absolutely
Fund?
not. You'd have the Highway Trust Fund.
We'd still have the taxing.
I mean, people are always going to pay a gasoline tax.
Right.
And it's always going to be dedicated to roads and bridges and the building of our infrastructure. You take that and you build on it an infrastructure fund or an infrastructure bank, and then you also allow states that want to do tolling to maybe build a hot lane or an additional capacity on their highways to toll it. people that want to build bridges like they do between Washington and the state of Washington and the state of Oregon. They want to build a bridge across the Columbia River that has a transit line on it, that has a bike lane on it. You could use tolling to do that, plus the infrastructure fund, plus the highway trust fund. So we're trying to build some capacity for funding as well as building capacity for infrastructure.
Hi, I'm Mike Rowe. About 1/3 of the 4 million miles of roads in our country are in poor or mediocre condition. A poor road infrastructure leads to accidents, delays, congestion, wasted fuel consumption, not to mention wear and tear on vehicles. Although companies like Werner are using new technologies to make our roads safer and more durable, their work will never stop because people will always want to travel wherever the road will take them.
The Ditch Witch SK650 is already designed for dozens of utility and landscaping functions, but we found room for one more, stretching your dollar. The SK650, now only $19,499. On top of the stability and traction they give you on the job, our heavy-duty tracks also give you better financial footing. Get free tracks when you buy a new Ditch Witch RT12 trencher. Hurry, this is a limited time offer.
With over 3,000 models, selecting the right pump for the job can be easy with Gorman Rupp. Visit us at booth C5011.
Damn it! I hate these things! Come see the latest in distance measuring devices from Fast Measure at booth S515.
To begin with, you have a bridge that was first built 75 years ago, reconfigured from part rail to full auto traffic 43 years ago, and nearly destroyed by an earthquake in 1989. We're talking about the double-deck San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, presently undergoing massive reconstruction for seismic improvements so it may withstand any future rumblings. The project presents a challenge for the 24 subcontractors working with general contractor C.C. Myers. We're focusing on just one, the Crisp Company of Fremont, California. This firm was picked to install detour and reflective markings. Naturally, motorists want continued access of the double-deck bridge during the 5-year construction, so a temporary detour had to be built, which required complete bridge closure for a week in 2009. To achieve this, a slide-in section permitting a detour to a temporary bypass that features an S-curve was designed and built. Paul Anderson, Crisp Company Manager of Marketing and Development, says the project was quite detailed, with detour markings required to last until completion in 2014. Spanning half a mile on both upper and lower bridge decks, lane lines, reflective thermoplastic directional and speed notices, and raised markers were needed to meet Caltrans California DOT requirements. The Crisp Company had to come up with some unique equipment for the striping project. They designed and fabricated a dune buggy type pre-marking machine on a truck to give their operators better and safer communication and ease of travel. Armed with a computerized skip timer, paint tanks, and air compressor, it kind of looks like something out of a sci-fi movie, what with its multiple booms and paint guns and the ability to lay out 3 lines simultaneously. Making up the convoy was a raised pavement marker truck and a long line truck, all combined to apply the markers and thermoplastic striping necessary for the job. When finished, Crisp had put down 5,000 raised markers, 2,000 pounds of glass beads, and nearly 12,000 pounds of thermoplastic material. So, the next time you're in the area, check out the San Francisco Oakland Bay Bridge construction and witness American technology at work.
Our industry, as you know, has been real proactive over the last number of years, maybe even 10 or 15, about looking at trying to reuse asphalt pavement, for example, RAP, in their mixed designs, and also more recently to start to embrace something like warm mix technologies, which, as you know, is the production of pavement materials at a lower temperature, so it decreases the fuel used in that. So those two things and others, and we can talk about that in a second, really are sustainable aspects. They're helping the industry reduce costs associated with producing the pavement, but at the same time they're saving natural resources for use later on. For example, using RAP both reduces the binder, the asphalt binder requirements to extract, and also saves on natural aggregate and virgin quarry.
Marks explains how sustainable paving practices like using recycled asphalt pavements and warm mix asphalt is becoming a requirement of many road agencies across the country. DOTs are beginning to require sustainable asphalt practices to stretch budgets, conserve valuable building resources, and limit the environmental impact of maintaining quality roads.
I think as state budgets get tighter, the pavement market is going to be more scrutinized from an economic standpoint more. And because of that, those practices reduce the cost of pavement. They're also sustainable. Everybody's going green. State agencies are going green, so they like that. They are starting to accept various sustainable practices like higher RAP content, and in some cases, warm mix asphalt for different types of surface materials. Some states are not as proactive or progressive with these types of technologies because there may be a perception that the performance might not necessarily be equal to the old hot mix standard.
Marks expects NAPA's continued development of sustainable asphalt paving practices to provide road agencies with the most cost-effective and environmentally responsible way to maintain quality roads.
Yeah, one of those, off the top of my head, is the increased use of asphalt shingles. Primarily, maybe a couple of years ago, people were looking at utilizing manufactured waste shingles, which are pretty pure, high amount of asphalt, decent quality of asphalt, and now we're seeing large plays on tear-off roof, residential roof tear-off shingles. What that does is basically you have this waste material that would normally go to a landfill. You're decreasing the amount that's going into a landfill. You're reutilizing that for the beneficial properties that are very compatible with asphalt pavement, and so it's kind of a win-win situation.
In addition to the growing trend of high recycled asphalt content and warm mix technology, the asphalt industry will continue to work with road agencies to incorporate other sustainable practices to produce quality road mixes.
I think we'll continue to press and push the envelope regarding more efficient and more sustainable practices, whether that means lowering the temperature even more on warm mix, whether that means incorporating other things like, for example, tire rubber or other types of material that may be compatible with the mix. It may be thought of as waste material now, but can enhance the properties of the mix or have the same performance properties. I think we will continue to look at those types of avenues for sustainable practices in the asphalt pavement market.
Hi, I'm Mike Rowe. About 1/3 of the 4 million miles of roads in our country are in poor or mediocre condition. A poor road infrastructure leads to accidents, delays, congestion, wasted fuel consumption, not to mention wear and tear on vehicles. Although companies like Werner are using new technologies to make our roads safer and more durable, their work will never stop because people will always want to travel wherever the road will take them.
The Ditch Witch SK650 is already designed for dozens of utility and landscaping functions, but we found room for one more, stretching your dollar. The SK650, now only $19,499. On top of the stability and traction they give you on the job, our heavy-duty tracks also give you better financial footing. Get free tracks when you buy a new Ditch Witch RT12 trencher. Hurry, this is a limited time offer.
With over 3,000 models, selecting the right pump for the job can be easy with Gorman-Rupp. Visit us at booth C5011.
Damn it! I hate these things!
Come see the latest in distance measuring devices from Fast Measure at booth S515.
You're watching the Big Show Newscast from 4constructionpros.com at ConExpo ConAg 2011 in Las Vegas and presented by Caterpillar. The next generation starts here. Our attention turns now to the economic outlook for the construction industry.
I think construction is in for big changes, positive and negative, starting right now. We're starting to see a big pickup in apartment construction, improvement in hospital construction, and some other private sector construction segments are finally awakening from their very long slumber. Meanwhile, public construction, such as the stimulus program, the base realignment projects, and the Gulf Coast restoration and hurricane prevention work is running at a maximum, and that may fall off very sharply later this year. So I think this is a time that contractors really need to connect to find out what the opportunities are and also what the risks are. Beyond the construction activity, there's also big changes happening with construction materials costs, and it's really important to find out what those trends are and how long they're going to last.
It's an improving outlook. The economy has been recovering now for more than 1.5 years, and construction eventually becomes part of that momentum. And I think the leading indicators are pointing in the right direction, whether you're looking at how busy architects are becoming or whether you're looking at ABC's own construction backlog indicator. Everything seems to be suggesting that construction performance should improve during the latter part of 2011 and into 2012. That said, with materials prices now rising vigorously, with interest rates trending somewhat higher, at least in recent months, it means that this is not a particularly stable outlook. In other words, the baseline outlook is for improvement in 2011. However, there's a lot of uncertainty around this outlook, and so it would not surprise me if some of that improvement that is currently anticipated actually does not come to pass.
Well, what we're saying is that the economy is going to recover. It is gaining momentum. But there's a lag between what the economy does and then what that translates into for construction. There are significant obstacles that have to be overcome. In residential, there's a foreclosure issue. In non-residential, there's high vacancy rates, low expected return on investments. And on the public sector, there's still huge state deficits, which impacts the public consumption. So even as the economy starts to grow, it'll take a lag before we actually start to see those benefits materialize.
Just imagine all the driving Americans do on a daily basis, and then have to try and work around that in order to upgrade a heavily traveled highway. That's what Oregon State DOT engineers recently faced when they had to repave a busy Portland bypass. Interstate 405 runs along the edge of this busy city, carrying upwards of 125,000 vehicles daily. And it was because of this high volume that the road had to remain open during construction. Just the idea of total road closure and its impact on alternate routes caused engineers to come up with a workable solution. ODOT Regional Project Manager Ron Larson figured that rather than take months of nighttime work on the 5-mile segment between the Markham and Fremont bridges, contractors would work weekends instead. To accomplish this, Larson set out a plan to require single-direction traffic between the hours of 10 Friday nights and 5 Monday mornings over the course of 5 weekends. Kerr Contractors of Woodburn, Oregon, won the primary bid, and Knife River Corporation was the paving contractor. By carefully orchestrating the basics, Milling and paving operations were conducted simultaneously over 4 55-hour work weekends. Moving equipment in and out of the project while traffic zoomed by in opposite directions was a symphony in the making for Knife River construction manager Jim Jackson. During just 2 of the weekend periods, Jackson's crews laid down 24,000 tons of asphalt across 6 traffic lanes, plus a 3rd transition lane in each direction of the 5-mile traffic way. Close communication and organization were at the heart of this effort. Knife River set up a 500-ton per hour asphalt production plant 18 miles from the work zone. Using 45 dump trucks to move the mix, the Get In, Get Her Done, and Get Out effort managed a production rate of 400 tons per hour to achieve density and smoothness requirements set down by Oregon DOT. As the pavement crews worked, so did ODOT workers handling detour maintenance and motorist problems that cropped up. A nicely coordinated and cost-effective way to complete one of the biggest and most challenging reconstruction projects in the country, and likely one which motorists came to admire on completion. Just another example of American ingenuity and achievement. Roger?
Thank you, Carol. We hope you've been provided with lots of information on the future of the construction industry. Tomorrow, we're going to focus on new technology such as hybrids and Tier 4 regulations. So be right here with us tomorrow morning for another edition of the Big Show Newscast presented by Caterpillar. The next generation starts here. From all of us at 4constructionpros.com, have a great day at ConExpo ConAg 2011.
Hi, I'm Mike Rowe. About 1/3 of the 4 million miles of roads in our country are in poor or mediocre condition. A poor road infrastructure leads to accidents, delays, congestion, wasted fuel consumption, not to mention wear and tear on vehicles. Although companies like Werner are using new technologies to make our roads safer and more durable, their work will never stop because people will always want to travel wherever the road will take them.
The Ditch Witch SK650 is already designed for dozens of utility and landscaping functions, but we found room for one more, stretching your dollar. The SK650, now only $19,499. On top of the stability and traction they give you on the job, our heavy-duty tracks also give you better financial footing. Get free tracks when you buy a new Ditch Witch RT12 trencher. Hurry, this is a limited time offer.